Welcome back to another Top 10s Day Wednesday video. Today is part 2 of our two-part series in which MTG Burgeoning discusses his top 20 favorite cards from Kaldheim. In this video, I am going to share the last 10 of my favorite cards from Kaldheim. As a reminder, this is not a most powerful list of cards. These are the cards that excite me the most. This is part 2 of the series, and if you missed part 1, then you can click on the link in the description below to see those 10 cards. Let's begin. Number 10 on this list is the World Tree. If you are a fan of this channel, then you know my preferred format is EDH. If you are a fan of this channel, then you also know my favorite type of card is real estate. Lands, baby! There is a part of me that wants to include this land higher on my list, but then another part of me understands its limitations. Let's talk about them. The World Tree enters the battlefield tapped and can tap for 1 green mana. As long as the player controls at least 6 or more lands, then the World Tree provides a chromatic lantern effect to those lands, permitting them to tap for 1 mana of any color. The ultimate color fixing for a format where multicolored decks reign supreme, in the strongest color in Magic, and on a card type that is generally more difficult to remove from the battlefield. Spectacular! Sign me up! 30 copies right now! Well, let's tap the brakes. The World Tree has an activation cost of white, white, blue, blue, black, black, red, red, green, green, limiting its inclusion to only 5 color decks in the Commander format. Additionally, while powerful under the right type of construction and circumstances, its activated ability allows the World Tree's controller to sacrifice it and then search their library for any number of God cards and put them onto the battlefield. This ability is limiting as there are just over 50 gods in Magic, not including creatures with Changeling. Although the mana fixing is very powerful, the restriction of including it in only 5-colored EDH decks with a narrow activated ability makes the World Tree just number 10 on this list. Number 9 on this list is Sternheim Unleashed. If you're a fan of this channel, then you know how much I love angels, and Sternheim Unleashed is going to send us some angels to love, baby. For 2 and 2 white, this sorcery creates a white 4/4 Angel Warrior creature token with flying and vigilance. It's Sarah Angel for 1 less. Value! Well, the real value comes with its other ability. Sternheim Unleashed has the Foretell mechanic, which allows a player to pay 2 during their turn and exile this card face down, and then cast it on a later turn for its Foretell cost. Notice the text on the Foretell mechanic. It says exile this card face down and then cast it on a later turn for its Foretell cost. Players can't foretell a card and cast it during the same turn. This is an important distinction to make because during the late game, if a player top decks this card, they're most likely going to have to wait until next turn to cast it for its more powerful ability. You want Sternheim Unleashed in your opening hand every time. When able to cast the spell after it's been foretold, the caster pays XX in white and creates X white 4/4 Angel Warrior creature tokens with flying and vigilance. The Foretell mechanic is a little restrictive, but it adds another mass-producing Angel creature token spell to Magic's database, and that's aces in my book. Number 8 on this list is Cosima, God of Voyage. This blue god has an interesting landfall ability. At the beginning of your upkeep, Cosima's controller may exile it. If the player does, Cosima gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under their control. If Cosima is exiled, they may put a Voyage counter on it. If they don't, return Cosima to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of Voyage counters on Cosima. On the flip side of this card is the Omen Keel, a 3/3 legendary vehicle that crews for just 1. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. Omen Keel's controller may play lands from among those cards for as long as they are exiled. That's a nice Gaia's Cradle you have in exile there. Slotting Asika God of Voyage into my Yarok the Desecrated EDH commander deck with a landfall theme seems like a great fit. We'll see how it goes. Number 7 on this list is Reflections of Litjarrah. Kaldheim produced a lot of favorable tribal spells similar to the Commander 2017 pre-constructed decks. These decks had cards like Herald's Horn, Mirror of the Forebears, and the Kindred Cycle, which reward players for playing tribal decks. This trend continues with Reflections of Litjarrah. When it enters the battlefield, its controller chooses a creature type. Whenever that player casts a spell of the chosen type, they copy that spell. If this enchantment included a Mirror Gallery-like effect, then it would be my number 1 on my list. However, the legend rule still applies, so these copied creature spells are susceptible to that. Nonetheless, in some of my current tribal EDH decks like Scion of the Ur-Dragon and the First Sliver, Reflections of Litjarrah slots nicely into each one. Additional copies of Utvara Hellkite Overlord, Scale Lord Reckoner, Scourge of Valkus, and Terror of the Peaks would make this dragon deck even more powerful. With slivers, who wouldn't want additional muscles, sinews, sedges, predatories, dormants, and lava bellies buzzing around the battlefield? Reflections of Litjarrah also provides the kitchen table with another spicy condiment, as merfolk, sphinxes, humans, zombies, and spirits will welcome this enchantment with arms wide open. I know mine will. Number 6 on this list is Koma, Cosmos Serpent. This creature is all about at the beginning of each upkeep, and is the most recent iteration in a short line of green creatures creating tokens at the beginning of each player's upkeep. This lineage began with Verdant Force, a 7/7 elemental for 5 and 3 green that creates a 1/1 green sapling creature token at the beginning of each upkeep. When Dragon Broodmother debuted, the creature tokens became more powerful as she produced a 1/1 green and red dragon creature token with flying and Devour 2 at the beginning of each upkeep. With Tendershoot Dryad, a 1/1 green sapling creature token is created at the beginning of each upkeep. Sapling creature tokens are given +2/+2 by Tendershoot Dryad as long as its controller has the city's blessing. Even in Kaldheim, Wolverine Riders create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token at the beginning of each upkeep. Well, each of Koma's predecessors pale in comparison to this powerful serpent. For 3, 2 blue, and 2 green, you get a 6/6 legendary serpent that can't be countered. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token. It's already a 3/3. Alone, that is tremendous value. However, there's a wall of modal text behind this ability that makes Koma, Cosmos Serpent, one of the most powerful creatures in Kaldheim. Koma's controller can sacrifice another serpent in order to tap target permanent, also preventing its activated abilities from being activated this turn. Or, Koma's controller can sacrifice another serpent in order to give Koma indestructible until end of turn. Koma can't be countered, is 6/6, produces a 3/3 creature token at the beginning of every upkeep, and is a sacrifice outlet for these tokens which can disrupt an opponent and or protect Koma. Koma is going to skyrocket to the top of Simic EDH builds and will definitely have a spot in my Quest for Ulah's Temple kitchen table deck. Number 5 on this list is the completed cycle of Pathways. If you're a fan of this channel, then you know how valuable real estate is to MTG Burgeoning. It is so refreshing that Wizards completed a cycle of valuable rare lands within 2 sets of each other. Is this a first? Well, hopefully it isn't the last. The cycle of Pathways, which debuted in Zendikar Rising, offer players an option through the use of double-faced modal card choices. Each of these lands has an option for which side the card enters play from a player's hand. This helps to fix mana in the early game and strengthen the mana base as the game progresses. As a fan of symmetry, it inordinately irked me that Wizards began this cycle with 6 lands instead of 5. However, if the cost of a full cycle of valuable rare lands is symmetrical balance and happiness, then that's a price I can pay every day of the week and twice on Friday Night Magic. Number 4 on this list is In Search of Greatness. This card is going to be trouble. This card is going to be a lot of trouble. Anytime a cast a spell for free option becomes available, players will break it. Players will exploit it. Players will create deranged and malicious synergies with it. It's what we do. It's what makes Magic the Gathering such a great game. Wizards creates a card, which may or may not seem innocuous to some, and then the community warps it into something so powerful that it eventually becomes a ubiquitous part of numerous formats. This is In Search of Greatness, and this card is going to be trouble. For 2 green, a player gets an enchantment that reads, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost equal to 1, plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control, without paying its mana cost. If a player doesn't, they scry 1. Let that sink in for a few moments. Has it sunk in enough? Cast a permanent spell, not just a creature spell, not just an enchantment spell, any permanent spell. So add artifacts and planeswalkers to this list. Also, lands have converted mana costs of 0, and with no other permanents in play other than In Search of Greatness and lands, a player can still cast a permanent spell with a converted mana cost of 1. This enchantment is printed in a color that needs absolutely no help with ramp, but yet here it is. This is In Search of Greatness, and this card is going to be a lot of trouble. Number 3 on this list is Mystic Reflection. A lot of what was said about In Search of Greatness can be applied to Mystic Reflection. It's an instant for just 1 in a blue, but it has the foretell mechanic, which means that it can be foretold for 2, exiled face down, and then cast on a later turn for just blue. Holding a blue open in order to cast this spell for its foretell cost is beyond reasonable. Either way it's cast, Mystic Reflection has an absurdly powerful ability. Its caster chooses target non-legendary creature. The next time 1 or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature. This spell has both defensive and offensive capabilities. Imagine an opponent that tapped out to cast Eugen the Spirit Dragon only to invest 8 mana into a goblin creature token, or an ornithopter, or a wall. On the offensive side, there is a lot of buzz about targeting Avenger of Zendikar as its green plant creature tokens enter the battlefield. This is an amazing combo. Another combo I look forward to completing is targeting Chancellor of the Forge in response to it being cast, and then watch each red goblin creature token enter the battlefield as a copy of Chancellor of the Forge, thus creating an enormous army of hasty 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. In somewhat of an unbelievable coincidence, both Avenger of Zendikar and Chancellor of the Forge are included in my Riku of Two Reflections EDH Commander deck, along with other great creature token producers like Deranged Hermit, Deep Forest Recluse, and Hornet Queen. Imagine the interaction with Doubling Season under this scenario. I can't wait. Number 2 on this list is Realmwalker. It is my prediction that Realmwalker will become the most powerful and impactful card for tribal decks in all of Kaldheim. It's a 2/3 shapeshifter with Changeling for 2 and a green. Of course, Changeling means that it is every creature type. It instantly synergizes with any creature type in Magic's history. As it enters the battlefield, its controller chooses a creature type. That player can look at the top card of their library at any time, and that player may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of their library. In a dedicated tribal deck, Realmwalker allows its controller access to the top card of their library in order to flood the battlefield of creatures of the chosen type. This is an extension of a player's hand, and in formats like EDH, that is a deep, deep hand extension. Although the card is very, very pricey, imagine how Realmwalker can interact with Allurin, an enchantment that allows players to cast creature spells with converted mana costs of 3 or less without paying their mana costs, and as though they had flash. Shapeshifters, elves, slivers, druids, rats, humans, and zombies act as the primary beneficiaries to this interaction. Even without Aluren, Realmwalker can slot into so many different tribal builds while still maintaining the Vorthos flavor due to its changeling ability. I plan to instantly include Realmwalker in my Sliver, Human, and Dragon EDH decks, as well as a slew of kitchen table tribal decks. Realmwalker is so good. And lastly, number 1 on this list is Asika, God of the Tree. When Throne of Eldraine was announced back in September of 2019, its buy a box promo card was Kenrith the Returned King. When Kenny was spoiled as this set's promo card, I remember thinking to myself, this is the best all-around 5-color commander in EDH history. He can pilot any deck. During this time, if there were any Magic the Gathering players beginning their foray into the EDH format or beginning to play Magic for the first time, I suggested utilizing Kenny as an all-purpose commander. He could do it all. He could lead any deck type in any combination of colors. He's versatile and not only a great starting option, he's a great finisher as well. As per EDHREC.com, he is the 6th most played general over the last 2 years, and he's only been around for less than 18 months. There is a member of my metagame whose every EDH deck is piloted by Kenny. His decks are all sleeved in the same color and stored in the same type of deck box. With no way of knowing which deck archetype or strategy he is playing until the game already has commenced, this Kenny-specific strategy is very unnerving, but also brilliant and powerful. Enter Asika, God of the Tree, a creature that is poised to assert itself into the top of the rankings of most played generals in the EDH format. Kaldheim's release is still fresh in the Magic community, yet Asika already is the 5th most played commander over the past week, as per EDHREC.com. Its 5-color identity lends itself to a plethora of different builds, all of which can be hidden behind Asika. Asika is a 1/4 legendary god with vigilance that taps to add 1 mana of any color. It provides this mana-producing ability to other legendary creatures in addition to vigilance. Although these abilities are interesting build-around options, it's Asika's optional second side that warrants a heightened degree of consideration. The other side of the Asika can be cast for white, blue, black, red, green, which is a 5-color enchantment called the Prismatic Bridge. At the beginning of its controller's upkeep, that player reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Then that player puts this card onto the battlefield. Tribal options, planeswalker options, combo options, Asika, God of the Tree, and the Prismatic Bridge offer a Kenrith the Returned King level of play options, and it is only a matter of time until this card becomes the most played commander option in the EDH format. That'll do it for this top 10 list, which really was part 2 of a top 20 list. Which cards from Kaldheim are your favorites? Let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons on the way out. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.